costly. Look at how much.
And they're less free. They're less free now than they were.
Variety of ways. Less free, and you can't just blame Obama. You got to blame, it's the cabal.
Oh, it's Bush. I mean, Obama is Bush part 3, and Romney is just going to be part 4. I mean, we've never had, like, I saw this interview, they're talking about who they thought was a worse president. I would have to say, I mean, maybe Woodrow Wilson, maybe, but maybe because he started World War I and
you know, you got
Federal
over.
Reserve.
I mean,
but maybe George W. Bush and maybe Obama. I mean, combined, and I think Romney would be like, you know, up there too if he got elected. You know.
Yeah, it's really.
I mean, our selections have been getting worse.
Exactly, and is Romney a good selection? I mean, the guy, if he wasn't born. You know, if he wasn't genetically endowed by being born to a famous, successful father,
right, who was a governor,
he'd be where he is.
Michigan, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You have to ask that question, and I don't think so. I mean, he doesn't acquit himself very well on the campaign.
Well, that's like when Dick Cheney, like you know, said in his debate a long time ago against Lieberman that you know, all his success was because he was in a private sector. Well, people didn't mention he worked for Halliburton, who gave him a job after he left the defense, being a defense.
Exactly, and that's a joke, and that's.
I mean, he was only successful because he gave himself a lot of corporate contracts. I mean,
right, and the same thing with the Bush family. Look at Neil Bush and this education software. They come up with something, they cook something up, and they sell it to the government. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, if your customer, you know, gives you guaranteed, you know, no bid contracts, I guess it's
exactly, and they got their brother in there who's the one giving, you know, lining up the contracts for them. It's the absolute worst kind of graft and corruption. And it's like people.
Yeah, Paul O'Neill, who is a Treasury Secretary, said in a 60 Minutes interview and his book. I mean, he was a Bush administration.
Got his book, yeah.
Department of Treasury. He was a Treasury Secretary. He said they were divvying up Iraq even before, you know, the Iraq War, like even before 9/11. I mean, he said they were divvying up between oil companies.
Right, and the funny thing is, a lot of that went down the tubes, and you got Chinese oil companies because once they got it going, these people were making their own decisions. And I saw this on CNN.
Oh, yeah, and our troops are, you know, they're protecting all the opium in Afghanistan now. I mean, it's just crazy.
They protected the oil ministry instead of the antiquities at the cradle of civilization. I mean, you got to say, what are your priorities?
Yeah, this is a complete time of like, you know, we got to do. I mean, this is like times where, you know, we need someone like, you know, founding father type material, people willing to make that kind of stand. You know, in Congress. I mean, I don't know what could be more exciting than the times that we live in, and hopefully we can take control of our government again. I mean, this is, you know, all the best to you, John, and I mean, I guess it's up to the people. I mean,
the people, but you know what?
I mean, if anything, this interview is going to be looked at 20 years from now, and people will say, you know what? I mean, hopefully this would be the start of when we took our government back, or they can look back sadly and say, you know what, there were choices that people had, and they just, you know, were too lazy and spending too much time on the Super Bowl or whatever.
That's it, the distraction. Listen, Tom, nice talking to you. I'm sure we'll talk again as this goes along.
Absolutely. You know, there's that Paul Fest tomorrow at the...
Yeah, and I when does that start? Because I really
it starts at noon. I mean, just walking around with the John Russell for Congress District 12 shirts,